G'day everyone, so I got the Behringer interface and that means I rushed ahead and built the receiver, so I did not record myself soldering it. That being said, I do have some images up on the screen of the final result, or at least temporarily the final result. And yeah, it's two, well I should say four double balance mixers, two direct conversion phasing receivers essentially, fed with the same VFO, which means they are coherent. Anyway, I I got the test set up. I've got the HackRF1 just generating a tone through a 50 dB attenuator through a phasing network that I built. Well, actually goes through a one-to-one transformer, an actual isolation transformer, because if you have any type of ground loop, this does not work well. What'll happen is that your noise floor of the receiver will just go crazy. So I did kind of have to stick around with having the one-to-one there. It feeds into a phase shift network. That phase shift network splits the two signals 90 degrees-ish, and that generates the two IQ signals, which get sent to the Behringer interface and into the program. All right, so now I will explain the software. I have my audio source, so this is the Behringer U404 HD. I immediately convert them to complex signals because that's actually what they are. There's an I and a Q, and then you can just treat them like complex numbers. So the constellation sync is basically an XY plot. Yeah, it's just an XY plot. So you just give it complex values and it gives you a point on the screen. Because these are going round at a certain speed, there will be a circle, but that's fine. So we've got antenna A, antenna B. The third one is the addition of A and B. So this is the result of phasing two antennas together with an arbitrary phase shift. And the second one is real special and something you can only do with this setup. This here is swapping the IQ of the second antenna, so that changes it from a positive frequency to a negative frequency. When you multiply a positive and a negative frequency together, they cancel out, and you will end up with a just like a solid phase difference between the two waves. I did have to multiply it because these aren't value 1, so when you multiply complex numbers, you add the phases but multiply the length. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to multiply the length to get it back onto the scale where we can see it, and we'll fire up the software and see what it does. All right, so now we're going to run this, and now we see something strange. Now this is the inputs to the Behringer. Ideally, these should be circles. Obviously, there is some distortion. There's some gain issues. So it's not perfect. I do have the signals coming into receiver 1 and 2 with 90 degrees phase shift. So ideally, at another 90 degrees phase shift, these should be peaking. But that's actually kind of not the case. Something's not quite right in my setup. But whatever, as long as I have the phase control, I can kind of deal with that. Now, the first thing I have to do is balance all the channels. Now, I could do this in hardware, or I could just reef here on the Behringer knobs there to adjust the gain of each of the channels. And we will see. The blue one's not too bad. The red one's got a nice fair bit of like weird distortion in it. But whatever, that's probably about as good as I can do. So, oops, adjusted it there. So there is our, hang on, come on. There is our phasing control. That's probably about as good as I'm going to get. Now, I'm not exactly sure why this isn't on one of the axes. So the phase into the antennas is 90 degrees apart. The phase of the some signal is 90 degrees apart. So this should be either a peak or a null, and it's a peak. But it's not. So if I go up here with the phasing, this is the peak. I think I've still got one of these channels messed up a little. Not that one. I think this one's roughly okay. It's this one here. Nope. Whatever. Good enough for Australia. Okay, so there is our phased pair. We can phase these antennas in any orientation we want. And at a certain point, they will mostly cancel. It's not perfect. It is suppressed. I can't really tell you by how much. That only, well, if this is 5 and this is 0.5, that'd be 20 dB suppression. You know, which is a value, I suppose. It's not perfect. It could be better, but whatever. Probably about as good as I'm going to get. This looks like a real valued signal to me, where the X and the Y are together. So I might have some weird distortion that I'm going to have to work out. But anyway, can change any arbitrary phase angle. And try and come back to here. So on this point here and this point here should roughly be the same type of size as the original circles. This here is the cancel out point, and this here is the addition point. And I can bring this in at any rotation that I want. So there you go. There's the plan digitally. I don't really know what's going with this phase. I might have to work on the hardware to try and get this gain a little bit more stable. So I don't really have to adjust it on the Behringer. But the real confusing thing is what's going on here. Why is this squishy? This red circle isn't right. It's peaking to the same value, but it's not quite right. So maybe I'll just pull the gain down just a little bit. See if I can get it more. Can I get even more circle? I don't think so. I think this is just, yeah. Something not quite right with that circle, that's for sure. Anyway. So yeah, that little, hang on, if I get rid of one of these antennas, that circle there is the phase difference between the two antennas, and it also shows you amplitude difference. That's why it's turning into a circle rather than just a dot. But yeah, there's nothing I can do. I think this is a hardware problem. Either my VFOs aren't completely 90 degrees out of phase, so I don't have quite the good IQ values, but I think it's probably good enough. All right, there you go. Just a little play with the phasing. Kind of a weird setup. I thought this was possible, but I wasn't sure how to do it until I actually played around with it. This swap IQ, so it negates the frequency. It goes from positive 20 kilohertz or whatever to negative 20 kilohertz. Multiplied by positive 20 kilohertz is 0. So that's why it's kind of hanging around the same spot. And then any differences show up as a as a phase angle. So fun and games. I've got some learning, some adjustments in the hardware to do, I suppose. But it's a good start. All right, 7 3 all, VK4 Delta Lima.